I know, and I can see by the look on your face that you're not really interested, but this isn't your typical hour and a half explosion of thoughts. I have a very well-organized outline.
Oh, really? Oh, okay, good.
Never mind.
No, it's all right, really. I'm interested.
Well, I can break it down into two concerns that I've been thinking about. One is that I find it really fascinating that personal growth and entrepreneurship are completely intertwined. And two, and this one came to me during my meditation last night in the closet with Joe, and that's the idea of freedom, or what freedom could look like in my life. And for me, freedom, the idea of freedom that sounds the most amazing to me is freedom from myself.
Well, that's cool, but why is that important for me right now?
I know. Just let me get to the point.
Please.
Okay, so it all made me think that we're all missing out so much on amazing content that we could be putting out there because of these formats or ideas of how we think we should be making content. When really it's just the personal growth stuff and the day-to-day stuff that maybe we should be capturing.
Ah, shit. I forgot it's my day to pick up the kids. Do you know where the keys are?
Yeah, I've got them. You know what I mean, though? Does that excite you at all?
Well, I don't know. You haven't really gotten to your point, and I've been a little distracted, you know?
I know. I'm sorry. I can slow down. We can talk about it later. It's just such an aha moment to me, which is why I'm so excited about it, you know?
Uh-huh.
It's this ever-looming desire that I have to create really good content that people are going to be like, yes, like, I love these people's content. I could listen to that again. I've been trying to unlock the format for that kind of content, and I feel like the more content that we put out there and experiment with, the better we get at it. And it's led me to develop an insanely addictive podcast episode format.
You did?
Did what?
Developed it, the format.
Yes.
When?
Just now.
You mean as you've been talking?
Yeah.
Oh, bother.
No, seriously, here it is.
Bro, the answer was literally C, bro. The answer was literally C. The answer was D.
How was your day?
Bro, this boy failed his math test because he thought I didn't fail it. I didn't feel it. It's geography class, bro. It's not.
Poppy, have you practiced your piano yet? Well, then I'm gonna need your phone.
I'm just so excited.
About what?
The episode idea I have, you know, the framework?
Oh, yeah. Finish telling me.
Okay, I can break it down into an easy to follow framework that will guarantee that people will become obsessed and addicted to these types of podcast episodes.
And this is for any type of podcaster?
I think so, yeah. Every type of podcaster.
Okay, go.
I love you right now.
Aw, I love you too.
I just want to do things to that booty.
Stop it.
Okay, so it starts with a promise. You've got to have a promise or a setup, and then you got to have the payoff. But between the promise and the payoff, you also have to storytell by incorporating some type of premise. And the premise part is where I think it gets a little tricky because maybe I'm not really clear on what a premise actually is. But for me, a premise is kind of this implied thumbnail or little bits of language that are built from and hint at what the story is really about. It's not really the words or the script of the story itself, but really the meaning or the little life lesson or something that the plot of the story is trying to prove.
I don't get it.
Well, like, what's the premise of huge stories or films like Romeo and Juliet or the Titanic? It's love conquers even death, right?
Oh, yeah, it's like the goal or the motive behind the story?
Yeah.
Well, how in the hell are you supposed to put that to use on every single type of podcast? I mean, what's the premise of, like, a marketing podcast episode? They want you to open up your wallet, right?
Well, yeah, but there's a difference between the creator's motivation and the motivation of the story or the characters in the story.
What?
The marketing podcaster, yes, is probably trying to get you into their sales funnel and to purchase their courses or coaching or whatever it is. But the way that the good ones do that is by telling stories and by making you addicted to their content. And if you pay attention to the great marketers, that's what they're doing. They're telling stories. Maybe they are the character, or maybe their guests are the character, or their students, or happy clients. But the premise of their stories is the meaning and the why of what they sell, which is kind of the same for everyone. It's change. It's like transformation. It's the promise of the underdog finally becoming whatever has been holding them back. And there are all sorts of storytelling techniques that every imaginable podcaster can put into practice in their shows.
Poppy, what was that? My God, Steven, would you go check on them?
Yes.
And tell them to come down for dinner! What are you looking at?
Just more about this Russia-Ukraine insanity.
I know, it's horrible. Horrible. How do you stay positive when the world's gonna end, you know? I mean, should I just abandon my self-care and my diet routine and just eat whatever the hell I want?
No. We just gotta stay relaxed and focused and present. We can be informed and help in any way we can, but we have to protect our peace, Stevie.
I know. I'm just so tired. I'm so excited to get some sleep.
Well, did that make you think of any ideas, though?
What?
The episode format idea.
Oh my God, are we still on that?
Well, I never got to my point. The damned kids and the dishes and the laundry and the making the lunches
You didn't do any of that. You just talked at me while I took care of all of that. And now we're going to be up until midnight so you can finish telling me about another tangent instead of just pulling out your little computer and typing with your little finger all these big words that you have or pressing record in your office.
It's my process, baby.
Well, it's exhausting.
Well, can I at least finish my thought, though, so I can remember it for tomorrow?
Fine. Finish your thought.
Okay, so remember, it's an insanely addictive podcast episode template.
Okay.
And it starts with number 1, which is to have a premise in mind and to hint at it while delivering a big episode promise. And the promise needs to be delivered within the first few moments of the episode. And then number 2, and we haven't talked about this yet, and that's to raise the stakes. The episode needs to become more exciting about halfway through. And like in a 30 or 40 minute episode, say, some type of transition should happen every like 5 or 10 minutes max. You could really compare it to a TV episode or like a short film. There's the first act, there's rising tension, a second act, a climax or the big payoff, and then a resolution.
I don't see how every type of podcast, like a sports podcast or like commentating non-evergreen show, or like a real estate podcast or two friends that just talk about a certain TV show or political issues. How are they supposed to put together little mini movies every week?
No, I think you're missing the point.
Oh, God.
No, it doesn't have to be a huge payoff with crazy save the earth type stakes, and it doesn't have to be scripted, but any of those types of podcasts you mentioned can utilize this format just by how they deliver the same type of content. Just tell me why at the beginning of your episode I absolutely have to keep listening to this episode. Make me a big promise, or at least a baby promise.
Baby promise?
And then you thicken the plot up somehow, or simply change up the topic, or break the conversation with some type of interruption that turns my brain back on and re-excites me for the outcome or the promise that you made me. The outcome that could just be something stupid that the friends say about a movie, or an angry outburst Lance has about a basketball player that leads to his deeply buried childhood trauma.
Okay, I get it.
So actually, I think it's number 1, have a premise. What's the little message? What's the specific problem that suddenly needs to be resolved? What's the problem? Then number 2 is give them a promise. Number 3 is create rising tension or action. And number 4 is then you give them the payoff. And finally, number 5, give them a resolution. So what do you think?
I'll give you my florecita if you stop talking.
Really? Okay.
Oh boy. OMG. What did you guys think about Studio Steve's experiment? When he came to me with this idea, I thought, you're crazy. You're not going to do that for a podcast. But the more he explained to me, the more I found the value in it. I hope you found the value in it too. And here are the key takeaways of this experiment. First, don't be afraid to experiment and mix things up with your own podcast. And second, Studio Steve's insanely addictive podcast format. The easiest way to achieve this format is to think, how can I incorporate storytelling into my podcast? And the suggestion that Steven has is to use the classic hero's journey storytelling format. And you can get started with these 5 steps. Step number 1, have a premise. Step number 2, give them a promise. Step number 3, create rising tension or action. Step number 4, give them a payoff. And step number 5, give them a resolution. So now let's go back to our story and see how all this takes place. The premise of this story is that running a business with your significant other can test your relationship, but love always conquers. The promise is that we're going to get to hear Steven's amazing revelation. The rising tension or action is the many interruptions, the screaming kids in the background, and the impatient and exhausted partner. The payoff. Steven finally reveals the insanely addicting podcast episode format. And the last one, the resolution, is loving each other at the end of the day, no matter what. And I know what you're wondering. Is this how it really plays out when nobody's watching and in our home? The answer is yes, 99%. Why 99%? Is because there's no florecita at the end for that kind of behavior. And for those of you tuning in for the first time, this isn't our regular format. We are the Pod Sound School. We teach you all the creative skills you need to thrive in the creators economy. Consider to subscribe to our podcast, share this episode if you like it, and go find us on social media at Pod Sound School. I'm over at Instagram and Steven is on Twitter. Thank you for listening.